Hi there. I'd like to go through an example from end to end on how to create a process map in Visio. I'd like to be able to cover all the little details of how to use Visio, how to fight with Visio at times to get it to do what you want it to do. And I'm going to take you through that from beginning to end. Hopefully it's useful. And full disclosure, I am not a Visio expert. In fact, the more I look at Visio, the more I realize I don't know much about Visio. There's so much in here that it's beyond me. So hopefully this will be helpful to go through step by step on how to get a process map. My goal is to get into Visio, get my mapping done, and get out with the minimal amount of trouble and annoyance. So that will be the tack. So the first piece of this I'm going to do is I'm going to show you step by step how to create a process map template. So here I've opened up Visio, and this is what it looks like when you open it up. So hopefully at the top you have cross-functional flowchart. That's what you're going to use, because when we process map, we like to have the rows, or the swim lanes rather. So you just can click on that, and here we go. So what we have here is we have their kind of their blank template. We have the shape menu set up, which is nice, because if you don't kind of come through this way, you have to kind of search for the shape templates. There are so many shape templates. Again, this is where I get to. Visio's way beyond me. You can do so much with this. Beyond what you need. What you really want, the cross-functional flowchart shapes, which are the swim lanes and the separators, and you want these basic flowchart shapes, and then it populates into quick shapes. So the first, like I said, the first thing we want to do is let's create a template so that all the things that we're about to do, we don't have to keep doing over and over. So the first thing, my opinion, is anything that's colored like this isn't going to print well on black and white. So I like to keep my charts simple, black and white. You can come through here and fiddle with these shape styles, or you can just go to design. And these are all the different themes. So I'm going to attempt... It remembers the themes that you like. There's a lot of crazy themes. These don't strike me as professional. So what I did here is I clicked on this little drop down. Now we have all the professional ones, which implies the rest of these are unprofessional. Anyway, I like this one. Simple is what we want. The rest of these, I just don't. If the organization is printing these out and doesn't have a color printer, you're going to have a bad time. There's a lot of people out there that are colorblind, and why mess with that? So I like simple. So I've clicked this, and you can see that it's changed all my shapes. If you don't go through this way and you try to change it individually, I've done that, and these shapes are still the same color. So if I go back to home and say, I want to fiddle with these styles, okay, great, you got that, but your shapes are still the same. So the nice thing, it is Windows or our Windows Microsoft family, so all your functions are kind of the same, which is nice. So all right, so now we've got our design style selected. The next thing I like to do is 8.5 by 11, as I kind of covered in the podcast, is not going to do it in my mind. I think most printers can print legal. Maybe your home printer doesn't, but you can set it up for it. But I think most commercial or industrial or whatever printers are printing legal size and as well as letter. We want to change this to legal. So we go ahead and we go to the correct tab. I'm going to just kind of go through. Here's design. We're back on design, and we want to set size as legal. So now we got some real estate now to play with, and now we need to get our swim lane diagram brought over. So we're just going to click that, just drag it over, and then we can bring this down if we like. There's really no need because we're going to add swim lanes. So of course the big challenge here is that 8.5 by 17, no, I'm sorry, 8.5 by 14 is legal. Tabloid, there's some printers that print that, but I think I would stick with legal. This is not a lot of real estate to play with. So we have to be very economical as we build our process map out and kind of squeeze these lanes. And I'll cover that a little bit more. Okay, so now we've got a simple design that will print out on any printer. It doesn't need a color printer. We've got our paper set up for legal. Again, we can just go back to design size if you want to change it. You got some really interesting shapes. So again, this Visio can do crazy stuff. And like if you want to print this out on a big poster, you could. You might need to, beyond the scope of this video. All right, so we've got our page size format. The next thing I like to do is we've got our title here, so we can kind of process name, and then let's say current or future state. I like to put that it's the current state or the future state on the map. The process name, we're just going to say process template. This is where you would describe your process. And then the other thing I like to do that they don't include in here is to put a date. So I always like to put draft. I know this is really small. Why it defaulted to that, I do not know. And I put this up in here, and this will be one of the first things I will always be fighting with. So if there's a better way to do this, you can go ahead and put that in the comments, and I would appreciate it. But I like to leave that there. I wish it would. You're going to see as I manipulate that this will move around. It's kind of annoying. So what I did is I put that in. I matched the font size of 16 point. So that is now 16 point. I believe that's the same font. Now there's your bold control if you want to do that. All right, so we have a date, we have a title. And the one thing I learned is that I would leave the phase in, but we can get rid of that. So we'll save that till later. So I think at this point we have a good template. So I would just save that and go ahead and navigate to wherever you want to save things and just call it Visio template. And there you have it. So now if you're going to begin drawing, of course. All right, before we move, I actually did forget to do one thing that I think is a good idea to do on your template is that, as I mentioned in the How to Process Map podcast, I like to have a couple different annotations, 3 different annotations. I like the annotation of a kind of a note, and the idea is that, and I'll delete this, like if you have a process shape here and you said conduct inventory, and let's zoom in a little bit. So that's our kind of our process box, and maybe this is not a great example, obviously, but if you wanted to kind of put some additional information about this here, it could be a system. We're using kind of the inventory, or maybe we don't use a system. Maybe we're doing pen and paper. So the idea is that you have your process box that we like noun and verb, but we want to say a little bit of something additional about that is relevant, something that maybe your stakeholders really want to convey, something that's important. You can have like this little note here, and you just put that there. So I like to have kind of your note or annotation. The second type of thing I like to use is kind of a call out when there's kind of a question. So there's a kind of an open, and I'm really creative. I'll just put that in red. So again, be cognizant of anybody who's colorblind. So they're like, yeah, look at the red notes. Okay, they're all gray. But yeah, so here we can just kind of say, we have open issues. And the idea behind putting this in the template is just so that we're consistent across all the maps. The most important thing, again, with the template in general, is that once you start making more than one process map, immediately we have a consistency problem if we're not being consistent. So once you start creating maps, do it consistently, like 4 digits for the year. Whatever, it doesn't have to be the right way or the wrong way, it just has to be the same way. So I like to put these things in there so I can say, okay, if I have an open issue, it's going to be this font, it's going to be this size. If you want to put it in a box or not put it in a box, go, have fun. Doesn't matter. Just pick a style and be consistent. There's a little thing here about adding comments, by the way. We're not going to go into any of the additional functions. We're just going to stick with the basics. So these things I'm doing, I'm sure there's a better way to do it in Visio. And again, share that information if you like. Like I said, my goal is to make this very, very simple. Again, the goal is to get in, do my mapping, and get out with not a lot of fuss. So the third thing I'm going to do is you saw I just kind of copied that same text. So now I'm just going to create a kind of a box. So sometimes I like to have things in a little box. So where this is kind of in line as we're marching along, notes, okay, hey, this is a thing, that's a thing. Okay, here's an issue, where need to find out details about X or whatever, and that's Sally's going to own that. So if we need to create action items, we can kind of call that out. So those are kind of the first 2 note types, and then the third one might be just a broader message, or maybe this is like a legend, or it could be purpose and that could be just something that's a little, just something where you need a little more standout. Probably that font's probably too small, so maybe a text box. And I do know that it does get kind of confusing with that. So your formatting will show that this is something like this, and then you can kind of come in here and do bullets. Now here's a quirk we just found, right? And maybe someone can tell me how, but it's like when you can't seem to have a mixed bulleted and non-bulleted in these boxes. So like if I just wanted that to be the purpose and I wanted this list to be bulleted, oh, there, it worked. Okay, never mind, we fixed it. Cool. I'd say using Microsoft Copilot is probably your best way to get help on Visio, by the way. So Copilot's a Microsoft product. My assumption is that of the AI tools, probably Microsoft Copilot probably knows the most about Visio as a Microsoft product. So anyway, so this is maybe an enhanced kind of a call out, or I don't know, text box. We just say text box. And again, you can see I've kind of fiddled around with it a little bit. You can also make these, actually we probably should make these rounded. So I actually went to Copilot to look this up. It was right in front of me. So if I want to round these corners, rounding presets, you probably were all yelling at the video. It's right there, it's right there. So there it is. So like I said, Copilot's kind of handy to kind of get you out of trouble. So this makes it look a little different than a process box. So we've got kind of a lot going on here, but anyway, the point being is that these are style choices that you can make. I don't know if I wouldn't say there's a right or wrong, but I think aiming for clarity and consistency. So whatever you choose, be consistent and make it clear. None of this, in my opinion, none of this fancy stuff that Visio gives you all the rope that you need to hang yourself with, in my opinion. So there you go. All right, so got your template, save it, create a template folder, and on to the next. Okay, so we've got our template. I've changed my text box to be something a little more compatible with my style. I've saved it, and now when I want to go and do some process mapping, the first thing you need to do is when you open your template is to make sure you save it as a new name. So we're going to call this kind of our what kind of process are we going to do here? All right, so now we have at the top create a widget. And by the way, the tools I've been using to kind of navigate around, again, standard. You got your kind of your scroll bars. You got your magnification. I know there's some fancier things where I'm not going to mess with those because I'm not really familiar. So I've got my name, my process name up here. So we're going to call this, create widget. We are going to map current state widget. Okay, this is a draft process map. Actually, I should have caught that. So we're going to do all right, so we are going to do the widget we're creating is apparently the Declaration of Independence. So, all right, so nice. We got our key shapes. As I talk about in the process mapping, in my opinion, you really only need these ones. I'm going to go here. So here we're missing on quick shapes. We're missing some of the ones we needed. So I went over to basic flowchart shapes. I like on and off page references. I don't want or need document data or these. Again, if you do want to use them, just be consistent. The things that I don't know that you need to use these extra shapes. I think to keep the shape template palette simple is probably better. If you do have documents or data, yeah, that's certainly an option. This is more of a flowcharty kind of shape library, if you will. So we've got swim lanes, which are our functions. And if we want to add more, we can come to flowchart shapes, and you can grab these and just drop them in, and it moves. You see it kind of went over my items. So if I want to move these down, I can select with the mouse button, grab them. So again, pretty consistent with all things Microsoft. If if I got this was a process shape. Remember that. So I can Control C for copy, Control V for paste. Look at that. And so as we use these notes, we're going to Control C them and Control V them again, so we can keep them. The nice thing too is we can group. So I just selected with my mouse. I can right click and I can group them up. So now if I have a bunch of those things, I can go crazy. Yeah, just go crazy with them. Yeah, look at that. Paper's cheap. So as you're mapping, right, just keep on going. But as I'll show you here, again, Visio gives you all the rope you need to hang yourself with. So when you start doing stuff like this, it's like, oh yeah, sure, we got room. Yeah, whatever you want. So you can see these dotted lines are now telling you, if you try to print this out, you're going to print that page, that page, that page, that page. So if we do like the four corners here. So, okay, sure. Yeah, look at all this paper you got. You can have fun doing your process mapping. Good luck printing it. So if I go, I'm going to save it. I'm going to go to print. And look at that. Yeah. So that's not very fun to print something like that. Hey, senior executive, review this process. Yeah, oh, sure I will. Um, so, but the nice thing is when you bring back to normal, okay, now we know. So now we're back on the same page. So now I can go to kind of print. Look at that, back to one page. That's brilliant. Okay, good. So that's really important to just kind of do that gut check. But the nice thing Visio is good about making sure that when you go past your thing, it's going to let you know. So that's like you got to rein it in. Rein it in, boys. All right. So I think that's a lot of kind of how we manipulate. I did allude to being able to get rid of phase. So phase is something that you may use in a process where you have maybe a very big process and you want to show like specific phases. Maybe something a little more end to end, something that's probably at a higher level than this map, where you talk about, maybe we have the kind of the pre-phase of sales, the mid-phase of sales, the post-phase of sales, or maybe we have a design phase, a build phase, and a deploy phase. Phase is kind of what you would use. And I think this probably tends to be more of a higher level, but if you did want to get into phases, I just grab that separator and we can start doing that. Look at that. So now we have phases, and now I can kind of say, yeah, this is the kind of the design phase. Maybe we're doing a software project. We're building our software. Test if you're doing a waterfall approach and deploy. So then we can do some high-level process maps. I like, if we want to do very high level, I like these sub-process boxes because, again, that's I call like the rabbit hole diagram shape, where if you see that, it's like you just know, okay, there's a whole lot underneath that's going on. So I just grabbed those and I brought them over, right? So I can just kind of bring those over. But we're not going to do all that. So I just wanted to show the phases. But now I can just click on those and using the delete key, no more phases, just like that. Oop. Oh, so what happened there? So it won't let me delete it. So I actually had to look this up because I've always just kind of had the phase bar in there and I just deleted the text. But I had all that real estate kind of being consumed by this bar that was serving no purpose. So Microsoft Copilot, this is not a commercial for Copilot. So you go to the cross-functional flowchart tab and you go to separator. Oops. Wow, my bad. Show separators. You can uncheck that. All separators will be deleted. Would you like to continue? Oh yeah, there they're gone. So this is it. Ignore what I just did there. So separator, no separator. Oh, separator, no separator. So learn something new every day. So there we go. It's there if you need it. All right, so back to mapping. All right, so we've got the template opened. We renamed it, so we're not going to mess up our template. I put a title on, I put a date, I put draft, my favorite word. I took the phase bar out because I'm not going to do phases in this mapping. In this map, we've kind of talked about shapes. So quick shapes, again, gives you a little, so you can add more of these little shape libraries, and I think quick shapes is meant to give you access to a few of the libraries. And then this is the more detailed. I want those on and off page. I bet there's a way to add those to that. Oh, look at that. Add to quick shapes. Let's do that. Add to quick shapes. All right. Now quick shapes has got that. I bet I could take that out. Nope, can't. Okay. So processes start upper left. Processes start with a customer. So customer start. And a couple approaches. You can do start. I think a better approach is to kind of maybe do a little description of what's happening. And we don't need to say customer. Don't do that. All right, I know that's probably a little small, so we're going to zoom in. And so order submitted. So this implies that that order process has already happened. We may want to capture the order process, but for this, maybe we're not. So for this, let's just stick with this, but I could see going in a different direction with that. So there's a couple different ways you can add shapes. If I hover over, not click on it, oh, there it is. So you got like this little thing that will automatically add. So it's kind of subtle, but you can see there when I hover over without clicking, I can click that and do that. That's one option. And I can just kind of go crazy. Notice I'm breaking all the rules. Visio again will give you all the rope you need. Other process mapping tools will yell at you if you break the rules, so to speak. You know, that's an end shape. We can't have anything coming after an end shape. So I'm going to delete all those. But the nice thing is, look at the lines are there. So that's one option. You can just kind of use that to see if you can kind of make that work for you. And then, you know, the next step, customers already submitted the order. So I'm going to drag that in here. Let's say it's sales. So we've got that. And then you can click on that and drag it over. You can also change these lines to make them curved. And don't do that, please. But this curve line could come in handy if you wanted to kind of send a message in a direct line. That's can be really handy if you want to kind of delineate something different than the process. But I would say anything process should be right angle. Let's say we're going to receive the order. That was method A, method one. The other one, you know, just kind of drag it over. And maybe I'm old school. You can see this is probably a little more annoying. Oop. Oop. So doing it that way, I sure made that look harder, didn't I? So what I'm doing is I went to insert a connector, and now my cursor's turned into a connector, and it goes away. So it lasts one time and one time only. But now connectors are good, but you got to hook them on. That first time I did it, I didn't hook it on. So when it turns green, it's hooked. It's hooked. So I go back to being able to manipulate, move around. So you can see it travels. So honestly, this is probably 50% of the point of Visio, is as you build and move things around and this thing gets really complicated, you want to make sure these are hooked so that you lose the relationship, because you probably haven't come through and numbered anything yet. If you do not hook them, you know, it's just almost there, like I did in my first example. You know, oops, you know, I start moving things around. Let's see if that works. Oh, look at that. So that's how you can hook them. I'm just making this process up as we go. No rhyme or reason. Just want to show you how to make this work. So let's go back to quick shapes. How did I get off of that? Oh, I am on quick shapes, my bad. Okay, so decision diamonds. So again, I don't like that you have to hover over, but there. Is this order in stock? So again, I'm just clicking in. As soon as you click into it, you can type undo. All right, so in stock. So again, I like happy path should go to the right, and unhappy paths are what I like to call off ramps in a process. Those are kind of going, you know, down or up, but happy paths should, I think, generally go in this direction. So then, so first of all, got to label the case. So here, what I did is I clicked on the line. Let's zoom in here and get close to what we're doing here. So click on the line, and I can just start typing, and it puts it in there, and it puts it right on top of the line. You may not want that. You see that little orange or the yellow dot? You can pull that tag a little. Another thing I like to do with my process mapping, you'll see if I grab this and move it far away. Let's say this is like an off-ramp where it's like some crazy case, and I got to go all the way to some other department way over here. The yes is in the middle, and I think that the yes, the reader is following along this shape. I think the yes should stay close to the shape, because you're following a line. You don't know what the line is until you get to it, and in a complicated process map, there could be a lot going on here. So I think that's one of the downsides of the Visio. Again, I bet there's a way that you can set that up where the tag kind of stays to the shape. It's probably buried in here somewhere. I have no idea. So put that in the comments. So anyway, grab that over. The other thing too is, as you move this around, you saw that it moved around a little bit. I think when you put the tag close to the shape, the yes, I think the yes will move around, will always be kind of equidistant. So that yes is moving around an awful lot, but if you have to move this around, you don't want that yes jumping around everywhere. So you can just kind of stick it to that, and it travels with the shape. Okay, so let's, so we said pull items. So this is probably the maybe warehouse outbound team is going to go pull that item, and maybe I want to put that there. Now, that's the one thing that's interesting, is it kind of moved that line to where I kind of like my unhappy path to go down. But actually in this case, because the happy path is going to this team, I'll look at move that a little bit, so I may have to fiddle with it. Maybe my unhappy path is going to stay in this swim lane. So maybe in this case, I'm going to break my rule, which is more of a guideline, right? I'm going to have the unhappy path go to the right, because I think sales, if the item is not in stock, they're going to have to take some additional actions. So actually, you know what we're going to do? Let's see if we can do this. In some process mapping tools, you can change the shape, but you can't here. So, I'm going to make a decision. This item. Is this item on back order? Okay, don't forget we got to put her no. Probably put it there. That's also another style choice you can make if you want to put it over the line or not. It's nice that it breaks the line so that you can put that over the line. So let's do that. I think I like that better. All right, so our process, or imaginary process here, is that we received an order, we check inventory. If the item's in stock, we're going to go pull it, and then that'll be our happy path, right? We're going to pull the item, we're going to ship it, all that. The item's not in stock, so we have a problem. The customer's ordered something we don't have. So the next question is, do we have a back order for it? And if yes, maybe we're going to notify the customer that, hey, it's on back order with some sort of ETA. So sometimes, like I said, you don't really use Visio so much as kind of fight with it sometimes. And this is why you got to have as much done as possible before your session, so you're not doing too much of this. And also you want to minimize the amount of fighting you do with Visio while you've got all these SMEs kind of, spending all their valuable time with you. This is also where a facilitator is really good, because a facilitator can be kind of eliciting, and you can kind of focus on the fight, the Visio fight, while he focuses or she focuses on the kind of the eliciting. Oh, we're going to create a little problem there, so we're going to go fix that. So anyway, so we're on the back order. We're going to notify customer of expected ship date. I've skipped a little bit, right? Because the back order implies that we're going to know when the ship date is. There probably should be a process step that says the sales determines the expected ship date. So there's a bunch there. In fact, we could do something like this, where we can say, now we'll leave that alone. All right, let's solve this problem. So there. So I like nice straight arrows and lines, and sooner or later Visio will do stuff where it just gets out of line. So your align tool is your bestest friend. You can see sometimes I forget where these things are. All right, so in home we have alignment and position. So I controlled A to select everything. If you go to auto align, that's a very dangerous tool, but I wanted to show. Actually, I just did auto align, and this is one of the other quirks that I have, is that for some reason it likes to take this date out of here, so I got to figure out how to keep that date fixed to my map. The date will just pop out on occasion, and then it makes that whole new page up there. So I did auto align. In that case it worked, but once the process maps get more complicated, it won't know how to auto align the way you want it to align. So but that's an option. So the key is that you choose what you want to do and you hit auto align. What I use tons are the align center, align middle. So you can see before you click on it, it shows you. So align center is a good example. So I had 4 shapes. When you align center, it puts all of them on top of each other. Oh, look at the little animation. So they're all under there. That's insane. Undo. So, and this is, I'm not succeeding at making this error case, but there's a case where there's a ever so slight, and maybe I've got my tool set up too good, but sometimes you get like this little crook in here that you just can't get rid of, and it's hard to believe. I think it deals with it, like you start like changing the size of these boxes to make room for text. It just gets a little out of alignment. Let's see if I can create the case, and I'm not successfully replicating it, but trust me that sometimes these get just out of the whack and you just can't get them straight. I'm holding down the shift key, click, okay, hold down shift, click, just like PowerPoint. I've selected all those, and then I can do align, and then align middle, boom, fixes it. You may need to do that. Very important, align. Other nice thing is position. You can carefully use something like this. So you can see that it brought those, it created that little line, but it's trying to take the bigger box and make it parallel to the smaller box. So I would say try to keep these shapes the same size as much as you can. And then I think also, so again, that's a case where you have just a lot of text, which I don't like. Like, keep your processes simple. you know, if you got to put that much text in it, maybe it needs to be another box. Maybe you need to put a note. I don't like process boxes, process steps with too much verbiage. It's now you're writing a procedure document. Like, it shouldn't be that much. Use annotations. You know, what was it? Whole item. I think if you got to say a lot of stuff, you can put an asterisk, and then we can go back to this little guy. Copy, paste. And then you can write your novel. You know, if you got to have the novel in there, sometimes you do. Put the novel at the bottom. You know, if there's so much you got to learn about this, you know, you can put it down here. Clean it up. But keep the flow going. Keep the reader going with learning what the process is. Oh, did I create my little case here? Let's see. So you can see I'm actually having a hard time keeping them aligned. Yep, see, there we go. We did it. Okay, so you can see if I move this yes out of the way. Can't get it straight. So do you remember how to do it? Okay, choose that. Hold down the shift key. Choose that one. Or highlight. Got them all. Align. Center. Fixed. Good. Okay. Glad I was able to show that to you. All right. So we've got our process map kind of going here. So we are on our way here. We are making some process maps. So we're going to create a situation where we need to add some pages. So we have page 1 here. I'm going to go ahead and I can right click this and I can rename it. So we can kind of say order, maybe order. Once we map this all out, we would know what this is called. And I'm doing pretty high level process, but anyway, so maybe this is an order process, and then maybe I need a return process. So 2 ways I can kind of do what I did there. Now I don't have any of the stuff to come along with it. Or I'm going to delete that. What I like to do is just duplicate, and then rename that. And make sure you come back through here and delete. Because I have worked on the duplicate page when I thought I was working on there. And boy, yeah, talk about confusion city. So as soon as you duplicate, take that out. So the nice thing with this is it's got our template already there, ready to go. It's consistent. We've got the date filled in. We've got the spacing, all the little details that give you that professional vibe. And it's ready to go. So we got additional pages. I like to name them. There's your kind of page navigation. So I would choose duplicate is probably the best way to go. You can drag these around and reorder them. And the nice thing too is, again, you can print this off. It's ready to go. So the other thing is now if I'm saying return, this is the return part, this is the order part. You can do, well, I think my examples, I've mixed examples, haven't I? So return or order, return process. And yeah, forget the widgets for the moment. So now you're printing this out. Now you know what you're looking at. Or we could go back and add a phase. So we could add an order phase, a return phase. So that's also a choice. So again, whatever you choose, be consistent. So now we got a couple different pages going. So let's say, have to ship an item. Oops. And so you start clicking around, it starts doing stuff. I did have the little squigglies. There we go. Right click. Right click when you have the squiggly to get that corrected. One thing with mapping I like to do is keep everything in alignment. So if I have shapes like this, I like to align them. It just looks better. Again, this is the prettying up that you don't do in front of the customer. You do that later. It just looks nice, neat, orderly. Come on. Customer's going to receive item. And then the customer is going to realize that they did not order the red one, they ordered the blue one. So now we got to do a return. So let's go into the on and off page connectors. So I think on and off page connectors are great, because what I don't like personally is when lines cross and then you get the little hump in the line, which is annoying. And more importantly, I think when you start crossing lines, that's when your map is probably getting too confusing. We want to drive clarity. We don't want to drive confusion. So part of what we're doing here, we're cartographers of processes. We are trying to make the process easily understood. So we don't want to make things confusing. You know, if you think about a map, maps are very, very clear. I might be biased because I studied cartography, but I like clarity. So if I needed to connect two boxes and I didn't want to cross lines, I like to use on-page connectors. Like they're little warps. I can kind of warp from one place to another. Notice I'm on a different menu. I have a different connector menu. So now it's right there. It's a little more what I'm used to. There we go. We got a connector. There's our text if you need to do text. Once you're in text, by the way, that cursor stays until you click that. Same with connector. I think once you stay in connector, and if you use this, it keeps in connector, so you have to go back to pointer tool. So I like using these little warps. I can warp around the process map wherever I need to go. I don't have the auto shape deal with these, unfortunately. It doesn't like those. So A to A, you probably won't ever have to use more than a couple, but if you want to get a complicated process on one piece of paper, and you may have to do a few of these. Copy and paste. So, I'm gonna, instead of doing this, I'm gonna, of course, wouldn't have to do this, but you could go from B and then make another one B. I should have copied the B one. Oops, I bolded it. There we go. I like to keep the I don't want to put the B in a swim lane that's not involved. So sales is not involved in that, so I don't want to put the B in the sales lane, because it's like, why is sales involved? And it's like, no, I just had to put the B somewhere. I had to put the on-page connector somewhere. So instead of drawing a line directly there, which you normally would do, I can just. So adding shapes, adding complexity, yes. So it's a trade-off. But I don't think hopping lines is the way to go. All right, so that's the on-page, but we want to do an off-page connector. So this is where we have a little extra functionality. So I got my home plate, and there's two elements to it, right? There's the visual element, and then there's the hyperlink element that if you are using Visio to navigate, you can use this to warp around. I think it's kind of a trap, because again, my goal is to produce a process map that could be printed and reviewed on an airplane by an executive. That's where my mind is. My mind is not send a Visio file to an executive and have them play around in this system. So the hyperlink is probably good for in-session navigation, but I've gotten caught by this is when you print it out, how does the reader know what home plate goes to where? So keep that in mind. But as you play around with this, and you don't have to put the hyperlink in there, but you can. And you can also have the shape text synchronized. Don't do that. I don't know why it does that. So first of all, we're going to send this over to the return process, right? So now we're here. Now we're at return process. We got our customer swim lanes already there. So that's good. So we just dropped it. If I click on it, wow, look at that. It's warping me along. So the case here was when the customer needs to return, and we should probably have a decision diamond up there, but it's not so important. But so we need to return an item. And then we can put a description in here that if I'm looking at the return process, we want to make sure it's clear. So here it says, okay, I received it. Okay, now I want to return it. Once I map all this return process out, I want to make sure I have something here that is helpful to me understand what's going on here. Because in a sense, this is now our start. If we would have mapped out just the return process and not the order process, we would have used one of these. And we would say the same thing, really. So the off page becomes, in a sense, our start of this process. So again, back to the point about if this stack of maps gets real kind of complex, we're going to need to have a way to tie these. So now the trick with these is if you double click, right, it wants you to warp over. So you have to click on text. So here you might need to do like an A. Don't use numbers because you may number your process map. So so in this case, we may have to use A or a letter. So now the reader knows, okay, if I get to this, I need to go find shape A, because we might have another map and we're going to create a new page. And then some other process, it created a new page for us, which is maybe kind of handy. And then that's going to be, we're going to back order item. So it's not a back order. So kind of getting back to our original story here. And you can see that, here we go. So, no. There we go. So now we're going to go to a whole back order process. So the downside of this is now I have to kind of bring over, which is, also a method, right? So I can control A, go to here. Oops. Control A, Control C, Control V, and I have to take that out and bring that there. Okay, and now that's our back order process. Back order. There we go. So we are off to the races. So I think you get the idea of the process mapping. I think we've covered all the shapes. We haven't finished up the process map, obviously, because it's just inventing it as we go. Again, sub-processes are great for something that is a whole can of worms you don't want to mess with. So maybe we're like back order. Like, no, let's not talk about back order. Let's just send this into the back order process, and then we're going to do a bunch of stuff down in there, and then we're going to come out of this to, maybe we're in stock now. And look at that, just like that, we need an off-page connector, right? I crossed over. Sometimes you can get creative and you can kind of do this, which is, I would do that first. I think that's better than having off-page connectors personally, or on-page, I'm sorry. So we just brought that back over. So we back ordered it. So this is, just imagine drilling down, doing a bunch of stuff, black box thing, magic happens, comes out with the back order's complete. And now we're just checking to see that it's in stock. So anyway, so we got our process map. We've been cleaning it up as we go, but you're going to be capturing it as you need. Again, you can, maybe we got to put a note. So we got to meet with Angie in fulfillment or whatever, or in, what would you call that process? Inventory management. So we're going to put a placeholder now, but we know we need to learn more about this back order process, because it has some connections into this. It's not a black box really. They need to let us know how soon they can get the items in, because if it's going to take 3 months, we're not going to just have it on back order for 3 months. That's crazy. The customer's going to go nuts. So we need to be able to give the customer feedback. Hey, yeah, it's on back order. It's going to take 3 months. Is there a replacement item we can get for you? Is there something else we can do for you? So it isn't a black box. There needs to be connections from this process back into this process back to the customer. So we can't get away with this. We need to flesh this out and figure out what the connect points are. That might be an opportunity there. So anyway, so we'll put it in red so that we don't forget it. I would say no process map is done until all the red stuff is gone. You can also use like commenting. I know there's probably some commenting features on here. But again, I want to be able to print this out and be very transparent about what the gaps are, because you don't want to print this out, don't have gaps, not have them called out, and people look at it, it's like, wow, this is great. And then it becomes like done. No, we want to dig into these things, because there's probably some real useful gems in there that we, some opportunities for improvement that we want to elicit. So anyway, so save it. We print it to a PDF. I mean, you can print it out by paper, but print it out to PDF, and then you can share the PDF. So you can just double check your PDFs right down here. The nice thing about that feature, that paper feature, is it gives you clarity about what's going to print, what's not going to print. If something like this is over here, that's not going to print right. So it's going to create this whole other page here. So that part's good. So we can print this off as a PDF, send it out to whoever needs to get it. They don't have to have Visio. They don't have to try to download a Visio reader. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to talk about. I think this is enough to make you dangerous. So good luck. Reach out if you need any help, or reach out with any tips for the community. Please share those pieces of information. But thanks for hanging with me for this stream of consciousness, and have a great day.